Hello everyone, this is your captain speaking, aka the CEO of Quantum Algo Trading, and today I'm going to show you how to use Thinkorswim drawing tools like a pro. In order to access those drawing tools, you want to head on over to Drawings in that top menu, and that sub-menu select any of the drawing tools that you'd like to choose throughout your trading journey. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use each and every one of these trading tools so that you can use them uniquely for all trading situations that you will find yourself in. The first drawing tool that I'm going to be reviewing is the pointer icon. The pointer icon is the default drawing tool that's going to show up when you first boot up Thinkorswim. The pointer icon can be used to highlight certain sections of your chart by left click and dragging, and you'll be able to see that selected portion of your chart in a zoomed in, magnified way. Let's say you wanted to continue to zoom in all the way into this granular portion of the chart, you would be able to do so. Now, if you'd like to exit this zoomed in view, all you have to do is double click and you've returned back to the standard view of your chart. When you first start up Thinkorswim, you're going to have your X and Y axis set to auto. If you would like to have a more custom manualized approach into what portions of the screen you're zooming in on, you would select manual. Let me show you the difference. So right now we're on auto. So on auto, we can zoom in left to right, and that will automatically zoom in on the chart for us. However, if we wanted to zoom in bottom to top, notice that I am unable to do that. I'm only able to zoom in left to right or right to left. But if we went and enabled manual mode, now I can zoom in bottom to top. So let's say I just wanted to look at this very specific portion of the chart, I would be able to do so. I don't normally use manual mode because I feel like I want to have that auto mode that automatically shows me the most important parts of the sections that I have been zooming in on. But this is something that some traders like to use when trying to hone in on a really specific portion of their chart. The next tool is going to be the pan tool. The pan tool is selected by clicking on drawings, going to drawing tools, and clicking on this hand that says pan. This gives you the ability to navigate the chart by clicking on the chart and moving your mouse left and right. Notice how I continue to navigate through the chart using the pan tool. However, if we want to navigate up or down, we have to go back to the X and Y axis settings and select manual. Notice how right now it's on auto, so I can't move up or down. I can only move left and right. But if I select manual, now I can move up and down, left and right. So, as far as the pointer icon is concerned, I rarely use the manual setting. But for the pan icon, I more frequently use the manual setting because this makes a lot more sense to me in case I'd like to get a closer view or a closer look at a specific period of time. One of the most popular drawing tools that traders like to use is something called a trend line. If you'd like to have a trend line on your chart, just go up to the drawings menu and select trend line. Now that that's enabled, you would left click anywhere you would like that trend line to begin, and you would drag that trend line all the way until the point where you would like it to end, and click. Once that's done, you have a few different options. Now, you can continue to draw trend lines by clicking on a different area of the chart and drawing another trend line just like we did before, or you can edit the properties of existing trend lines that you have already drawn on your chart. If you want to edit, move, customize your trend lines, you would go to Drawings and select the pointer icon. By selecting the pointer icon, you're given the ability to select and move your trend line, or you can double click on it, which would open up a properties menu where you can begin changing different components of your trend line. Now, this properties menu is going to be universal to the majority of the drawing tools that we review in this video. So this is going to be really important. The first thing that you're going to see in a properties table is going to be the name. You have the ability to change the name of whatever drawing tool you are editing. In this case, it is the trend line that we drew, and we're going to change the name to Captain's Trend Line. Now you have the arrow type, label position, show label, left extension, and right extension. So let's go over what those things mean. So the arrow type, we have the ability to have it either show as none, which is what we're looking at right now, or we can add some arrow features to the trend line. So for example, on this trend line, we could put this right facing arrow, and you'll see that it'll change the property of that trend line so that now it has that arrow feature at the very top. Notice the other trend line that we drew that we didn't change properties for is unaffected. So this will not universally do these settings for all of the drawing tools that you have on your screen. They will only be applicable to the drawing tool that you have selected. So next, label position, left, right, or middle. So right now we don't have a label showing, but if we did, and we set this to always, and we have label position on the left, now notice that we have this label showing up all of the time, right at the beginning of the trend line itself. And it's going to give you some information about the drawing tool that you have selected. In this case, it goes for 147 days, aka 104 bars, and it shows the percentages and so on and so forth. If you don't want it to always show, you can also have it show on hover. If we select that, then it'll only show up when you hover above that trend line. I personally don't really use the labels, so I'm going to have it set to never. Next, you have extensions. You have the left extension and the right extension. So if we select on for the left extension, notice that it's going to go all the way to the beginning of time. If we select the right extension, notice it's also going to go in the opposite direction for infinity. If that is not what you're looking for, or you only want one of those options, you can tailor that here. So I'm going to go ahead and select off for the left extension and keep the right extension running. Now, you have begin point and end points for the value of your trend line. So you can change both manually on the chart by moving the beginning point and dragging it where you would like it to go, or you can change that value here as well as the date where that begins. So for example, if we wanted this to be 570, notice that the trend line is readjusted to begin at 570. Now let's say we wanted it at 570, but we wanted it to be on a different date. Now we've readjusted the starting point and the starting date. Now, as far as color, style, and width are concerned, here's how I normally like to do it. So for color, it's completely up to you. You know, if you like orange, that's cool. If you like blue, you can change it to blue. Notice it immediately responds to your color selection. For the style, you have three options. You have this solid line, you have this dashed line, and then you have a dotted line. So right now we're on a dashed line, but if you change it to a solid line, it'll change to a solid line. Now, if you are kind of annoyed with the arrow type that's showing up not being consistent with the continuation of the line since you've enabled right extension on, you could select none and it wouldn't show up. Now, if you reselected it, what ends up happening is it resumes to where you originally set and anchored that endpoint for the trend line. For the width, you can change between 1 and 5 for the width of your trend line. So right now we're at a 3. If we do a 1, notice how it gets much thinner. If we do a 5, that's going to be the thickest option. I normally like to set these to a 3, and I normally like to have them dashed. So that's a little bit about how the trend line works. Now, if you would like to always have these features enabled each time you make a trend line, you can do that. And the way you do that is you save it as a default. So if you click Save as Default and press OK, notice now every time we draw a trend line, it's going to have the exact same settings. Notice that it is not following the settings that we had when we made this orange trend line. It is now using the updated settings for the new trend line. Now, let's say you're no longer a fan of this style. You can always reset to factory default. And now when we draw a trend line, this is going to be the factory default setting, this very thin red line. If you'd like to remove these indicators from your chart, you can do so by selecting on them individually and pressing delete, or right-clicking and selecting remove drawing. Or if you just want to remove all of the drawings from your chart, you would right-click and select clear drawing set. Another important drawing tool that traders like to use is the price level drawing tool. You can select that by going to Drawings, Drawing Tools, select Price Level, and you can select the beginning and end anchor points just like you did with the trendline feature. The only difference here is that it's going to be a horizontal line instead of a line at an angle. So if we select that first anchor here and that second anchor here, now we've established a price level on our chart. If we want to make changes to where that price level is placed, we would go to Drawings, select the pointer icon like we did last time, click on it, and we can drag it up and down on the screen wherever we want it to be. So if we wanted to place it right here, we could do that. And if we wanted to go ahead and give it a title, we could do that too. So we could title this Support Level, and we can have it show the name on the left or the right, and we can have it show the price on the left or on the right. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and show you what that looks like. So here we have support level with the title on the line showing on the left and the price showing on the left. Notice if we turn off the price portion, it's just going to show that title. Now, as far as the extensions are concerned, right now the right extension is turned on. If we went ahead and turned it off, it's only going to show us where we set those original anchors. Normally with support and resistance price levels, I like to turn on the left and right extensions because this is going to be important for most of the time on the chart. So right now you have it showing on the entire chart. Now, if you want to go ahead and change the value where that line begins, you can do that here or manually like I reviewed with the trend line. And same thing with the color. If you want to change this color to yellow and have it show up in the biggest width possible, you could do that as well. And remember, if you always want to keep these settings, you would just save as default, and every time you make a new price level, it would show up in this way up until you decide to reset the settings to factory default. The next tool is going to be the time level tool. So you would go to drawings and select this time level icon. And now you can begin drawing vertical lines in the chart to establish specific points in time. So let's say there's a really important event happening on 6:30. You can draw that line so that on your chart, you know, hey, 6:30, there's a really important catalyst that day. You can do this multiple times on your chart for different dates of importance. Now, this has the same properties tab as the trend line and the price level, so double click on it to get that properties table as we've gone over before. And if you want to move that left and right, just click and drag wherever you'd like to move the time level tool. If you're looking to label things on your chart with text, that's what the text tool does. You can select that here, that big gigantic T, and you can select where you would like to enter your text note. So here we would put Quantum Algo Trading. And now we have this text note. Now remember, if we want to move it, edit it, any of that kind of jazz, we have to go back to drawings, select the pointer tool, and now we can move it wherever we want it to go. We can also make some adjustments in terms of the font style that's used. And we can also change the size, and we can make it bold or italic. So notice now this looks drastically different after making all of those changes. Here's what italic looks like. And if you want to change the color, you can do that as well. Next is the arrow tool, and it is the simplest of the tools because all that it does is draw an arrow anywhere you click on the chart. Now, if we want to change things about that arrow, click on that pointer, double click, and here we can change the direction of that arrow. So if we want it to point down and we want it to have an extra large arrow sign and we want it in green, we can do that. For those of you who like drawing shapes on your charts, you can do so by selecting either the oval or the rectangle features. By selecting the oval, you can select your first anchor and second anchor by left clicking. And if you wanted to do the same for the rectangle, that's what that would look like. If you wanted to move them around and change some of those settings, you would select the pointer icon and click and drag where you would like that oval to be or where you would like that rectangle to be. If you want to change the color of the oval or the rectangle, you can do so by changing the color here to something else. Press OK, and now you have a different color for your shape. For those of you looking to draw channels on your chart, that's very easy to do. You would just go ahead and select the channel option, and then you want to go ahead and treat it kind of like a trend line. You click and then end where you want that first channel to form, and then after that, an identical trend line is going to form that you can drag anywhere on the chart to form your channel. So a channel is just basically two symmetrical trend lines going in the same direction with a certain amount of space in between them. Now, if we wanted to go ahead and change the properties of this channel, you would double click. And something that I thought was kind of cool was that you can set coefficients within that channel. So for example, if you wanted a 50% coefficient in that channel, you could do so, and now you have this midline helping you kind of understand where a price is with regards to that midline within that channel. Now, if you want to go ahead and add even more coefficients, you can add the 25 and the 75. And if you want to change the color, you can do that, but make sure that you change the color of the coefficients as well if you want it all to look the same. If you don't want it all to look the same, it would look something like this.
Run.
Now I'm going to review some of the less frequently used drawing tools on Thinkorswim. For starters, there's going to be something called a regression line. So you're going to go to drawing tools and click on that R. And in order to use the regression line, it's going to be very similar to like a channel or a trend line. You're going to have that same left click anchoring where you click on one point of the chart and then click again on a second point of the chart. And that's going to draw the regression line for you. So for example, if we click here, the regression line is going to show us something called the slope. So here the slope is going to be bearish because the overall line of best fit is pointing to the downside. Now, the way that this indicator or drawing tool in this case is normally used is traders like to draw this and look to see what the overall trend is from point A to point B and how price is reacting to that mean line, which is basically that middle point. In addition to the regression line, we also have the regression channel. Very similar to the channel that we made earlier in this video, you have the regression channel, that R with the two parallel lines. And we're going to draw that first initial regression line, but this time when we stretch it out, it's going to be creating a channel for us to look at. I think this is a much easier visualization of the regression style of charting. The next set of drawing tools that I'm going to be discussing have to do with something called Fibonacci theory. Fibonacci theory in trading is based on the idea that markets move in natural repeating patterns that reflect the same mathematical ratios found throughout nature. These ratios, like the 61.8% and 38.2%, for example, are derived from the Fibonacci sequence, a series where each number is the sum of the two before it. Traders use these ratios to spot key turning points in price where a trend might slow down, reverse, or take off again. The idea is that just like nature moves in patterns of balance and proportion, markets do as well. Prices tend to breathe as they expand and contract in rhythmic cycles, and these movements often align with Fibonacci levels that can be measured and traded around. The first Fibonacci drawing tool we're going to be looking at is the Fibonacci retracement tool. You can find that in the drawing tools submenu. Click on that percent symbol, and now we have it activated. Now what this tool does is it helps you kind of spot where a market might pause or reverse during a pullback. So the way that it works is that you can draw it from a swing high to a swing low or vice versa, and it's going to draw out these horizontal fib levels that represent areas of support and resistance. So theoretically, if the market were to pull back from here, we'd want to look out for this very first fib retracement level as an area of support where it could bounce. Now, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if that was the case, because historically, when price hit this level, it seemed to have found a lot of support in the past. Now, if you're looking to make modifications to your fib retracement tool, you would make sure you enter pointer mode and then double click on the tool to open up the properties menu, where you can go ahead and change the coefficients or the color of the fib retracement tool. So for example, let's say you only wanted to see certain levels, you could disable all of these other levels so that you only saw the ones that you were most interested in. So an example of that might look like this. Now, if you also want to go ahead and change the overall color of the Fibonacci retracement, you can do so here. You can even change the color of the trendline curve. Next is going to be the Fibonacci extension tool. The Fib extension tool is a lot like the retracement tool, but with an added step. To access this tool, you go to Drawing Tools, click on Fibonacci extensions. And here, basically what we're going to be doing is using this to kind of figure out how much the market is going to pull back when it pulls back next. So looking at historical data, we can try and make an attempt to see what the retracement might look like. So the most recent would be up here. Here's one pullback that we can draw from. And then we drag it up to that swing high. And these would be some levels that are relevant to retracement. So here, if we were to pull back from these all-time highs, here are some levels to look out for about where the market could bounce next. Next, I'm going to be talking about the Fibonacci time series drawing tool. You can access it here by clicking on the time series icon. And the way that this drawing tool works is you're going to use it to kind of determine where potential reversal points in the future might happen off of a swing high or swing low. So here's an example of a swing low. By clicking here, now we've kind of drawn all of these Fibonacci time points for where reversals might occur. And notice that it actually was kind of on point on more than a few occasions. Here we had a reversal top that happened right during a Fibonacci time series level. And then right here, we had a bottom that happened right during a Fibonacci time series level. So, am I here to tell you that this thing always works and never fails? Absolutely not. To be honest, I rarely use this drawing tool, but this is how it works. Now, if you wanted to make modifications to it, we'd be doing the same thing that we always do, double click, and you can change everything you want in the Properties tab. Next up is the Fibonacci time ratio tool. The time ratio tool is very similar to the time series tool. We're going to be using it to mark a major low and a swing high, and using that information to kind of determine when potential reversals might occur. Next up is the Fibonacci time extension tool. This is going to be really similar to the other Fibonacci extension tool, except this time we're going to have the variable of time. So you would go to that drawings menu and select the Fibonacci time extension tool, look at a most recent pullback from swing high to swing low, and then up to the most recent swing high. And then in theory, you would use these levels to get a better understanding of when potential reversals might occur in the future. Next up are the Fibonacci arcs. Fibonacci arcs are a little different from the other Fibonacci tools we've been discussing up until now, because instead of using horizontal and vertical lines, now we're going to be using curved lines. The way that looks is as follows. We're going to go to Drawing Tools, and we are going to select Fibonacci arcs. And I'm going to show you the power of these arcs by showing the way that they would have worked in the past. So look at this market low. We're going to start one anchor there, and let's go up to this swing high. Now notice how price reacts to the edges of these arcs. Notice how here it hugged this edge of the arc, but more importantly, from a future tense perspective, notice how right at this edge of this ring, we had a massive gap down. Now, if you'd like to make modifications to that arc, you can go ahead and double click on it, and you can choose what coefficients are showing within the arc. Right now we have the 382, the 5, and the 618. These are classic tried and true Fibonacci ratios. You can change those, change the color, the style, the width, everything we discussed in the past about property tables applies here. Next up, we have Fibonacci fans. You can select that from the menu. And we're gonna do the same levels that we did last time, from this low up to this peak. And as you can see, these lines are going to act as areas of support and resistance. So notice how we had price deflect right at this line. And then once we lost this line, we had that gap down. The last Fibonacci drawing tool is going to be the Fibonacci spiral. The spiral is going to look a little different from the others. We're going to draw that same level that we did last time. And it's going to be kind of similar to the arc in the sense that we have this curved area of support and resistance, but it's going to encompass a wider area. And here, as you can see, looking in the past, it actually really respected this curve. And over here, it found support on this curve. So there is some truth to these Fibonacci drawing tools. The next drawing tool is the Andrews Pitchfork, which was developed by Dr. Alan Andrews, a mid-20th century economist and technical analyst who is also a follower of Isaac Newton's principle, stating that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So Andrews loved this idea so much that he attempted to apply it to the markets, believing that price naturally seeks balance around a central path. How do you draw one of these? Just go to Drawings, select that pitchfork icon, and now we're going to impose it on 3 pivotal points. So here's pivot 1, 2, and 3. And notice how price tends to stay in this range, this channel, and gravitates towards this median line every time it hits one of the sides of the channel. Once it completely broke out of this channel, now we have a new path. So we could draw this again right here and notice what that ends up looking like. So now price is trying to stay in this path until it breaks out of this channel, and so on and so forth. So that's how you draw an Andrews Pitchfork on your chart. Have you ever heard the saying that the market likes to move in cycles? Well, this drawing tool attempts to predict exactly that. This is the Cycle Brackets drawing tool. You can find it in your Drawings menu, and it's going to look something like this. The way that I like to use this is I look for 2 market highs or 2 market lows and connect them together. So here is one market low, and here's another market low. And now we have these humps that have formed at the bottom of the chart. Now we can use these humps to attempt to predict when the next market high and low is going to be. So here we're looking at market lows because we connected 2 market lows. So let's see when the next market low would be based off of the price action from 313 all the way to 47. So here would be one area where we'd have a potential market low, and look, get a nice wick down. Here's another area, very much the case this time. Here's another area, look, very much the case this time as well. Here was a big dip that this caught. Right here, less so. Here, absolutely nailed it. And here, it absolutely nailed it as well. So this is how you use cycle brackets on your chart. Now, in terms of customization for cycle brackets, when you double click, there really isn't much to customize aside from how you draw it if you want lines or arcs. So this is what lines would look like. And then the period of time that separates each cycle. So this current cycle is a 17-bar period, which is indicated here in the properties menu. The Quadrant lines drawing tool is basically a fib retracement tool, but instead of using fib ratios, it's going to be using quarterly ratios. Let me show you what that's going to look like. So to access, you go to Drawings, and this time you're going to select Quadrant lines. And look, let's take that swing low to swing high, and notice it's just making a fib retracement, but instead of using the fib ratios, it's going 0, 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%. This next drawing tool is something called a Gann fan, and it was made by a legendary esoteric trader by the name of W.D. Gann. Gann liked to look at things like sacred geometry and would even look at planetary alignments to decide when to enter and exit securities. This is by far one of the most mysterious trading techniques that I have ever come across, but I'm going to show you how it works and how you can use it to your advantage. So to look for the Gann fan, you're going to go to Drawings and select Gann fans. Now, I've already drawn these out because there's a very specific sequence that you have to follow to do that. First, you have to draw price levels at the high and low of that cycle. Then, subsequently, you're going to draw a 45-degree trend line between the bottom and the top of that range. Now you have the structure to impose the Gann fan. So the next step is going to be adding that Gann fan on that 45-degree line. Now, normally what people like to do is draw two Gann fans, one going up and the other going down. So here's that 45-degree line going down, and then here is going to be the Gann fan that I've added on that line as well. Now that we have these Gann fans in place, you can use them as areas of support and resistance. So notice how price kind of liked to respect this line of the Gann fan, and notice how price initially during this pump really like to respect this line of the Gann fan. Are Gann fans things that I use on a normal basis? No, but I've always been intrigued by WD Gann, and I think there's definitely a lot to his methods, but this is a very cult-like following and cult-like method of trading that is very different from other types of technical analysis, and I wouldn't recommend it to any new beginner traders just starting out. Are you ready for me to show you a really cool hack on how to use your drawing tools on a regular basis? So up until now, you've been accessing them in the standard way of clicking here, selecting your drawing tool from this menu, or right-clicking and selecting them here. But what I bet you had no idea existed was the fact that you can have them pinned to your chart by going to Settings and enabling My Tools on each chart, press Apply. And now, once we pin this up here, you permanently have access to all of your drawing tools that you have selected for everyday use. So right now, we have Trendline, Text Note, Simple Moving Average, Andrew's Pitchfork. But we can change all of that in this Settings tab, and we can remove or add different buttons. So for example, all the drawing tools that we reviewed in this video are available here, but you can also add studies, study sets, style, time frame. If you wanted to really utilize those Gann fans that we just talked about, you could add that to your pinned menu of drawing tools. And now every time you want to use a Gann fan, you would just click on Gann fan. Every time you want to use that Andrew's Pitchfork, you would just click on Andrew's Pitchfork. Notice how it's changing up here when I select one of these options. Now let's say you want to draw something in your chart that you want to have accessible in the future, but you don't want it to always show up on the chart every time you look at it. What you're going to want to do is create something called a drawing set. So you would go to Drawings and you would select Create Drawing Set. So for this drawing set, it's going to be focused on price level. So we're going to call it Price Level and press Create. Now, every time I make a drawing on this chart, it's going to be saved in that folder called Price Level. So we're going to go ahead and make this price level right here. And we're going to go back to Drawings and we're going to select Default as the drawing set. Notice now the default settings have removed that price level from showing up. But when we go and select Price Level, we can see that price level. Now let's say we want to add to this chart. We want to add a few more drawings. We can do that. So let's say you want to add a trend line on this chart on top of that price level chart. Well, that's okay because now it's saved in that folder. So every time you select default, we go back to that default mode. And every time you select price level, we go to the price level mode. Now let's say you're like, okay, so this is going to be my trend line and price level chart, but I also want to do some fib retracements. So you would go to Drawings, and now we're going to create another drawing set. We're going to call it Quantum Algo Fib. Press create. And now we're going to go to these drawings and we're going to select that fib option and we're going to create a retracement from bottom to high. And now here is our retracement chart. Okay, so we go to drawings, select price level. Here's our price level chart. We go to drawings, select default. Here's our default chart. And we go to drawings and select quantum algo fib. And here's our fib chart. Now, if you want to go ahead and delete drawing sets, you would just go to drawings, delete drawing set, and you can delete the ones that you want to delete. So here we've deleted the price level, but we still have access to the quantum algo fib. Now, if you're looking to remove drawings in general and not just drawing sets, you would go ahead and right click and you have two options. You can clear drawing set, and that's just going to remove everything that's on your chart. Or you can remove old drawings and specify how old the drawings have to be in order to be removed. If you're new to trading, you're looking for some structure, some guidance, a mentor that's going to hold your hand and show you the ropes, I highly recommend joining our trading community. You can try 10 days for free by using promo code FREE. I will personally greet you and make sure that you're taken care of once you're part of our team. And all of the energy that you put into your journey as a trader, I will reciprocate right back to you, because once upon a time, I was in your shoes. I was in a career I hated, in a job I hated. I wasn't making the kind of money that I wanted to make. And I did everything it took to get into the position that I am today to be a full-time trader. So if this is something that you want to do and you're looking to either make this a full-time career or create a passive revenue of income while you try to figure out a way to get out of that job, this trading community is going to help you get onto that path.